just another true crime channel. I appreciate you choosing to listen to my video. I appreciate your ear and your opinion, and I hope that this story I'm about to tell you intrigues you a little bit. I will start off by asking you, have you ever had anybody that's ever tried to stalk you? Somebody that maybe scared you? Were you ever so mad at somebody you wanted revenge? I mean, I think we've all been angry at somebody at some point in our life. But would you ever actually retaliate? Would you ever try to get even? What length would you go in order to make you feel better inside? For me, revenge isn't the answer. For others, it's the only answer. With that being said, today I'm going to be talking to you about a event that happened in a town called Circleville, Ohio. In this town, they have what they call the poison pen. Somebody basically sent a bunch of letters to a lot of the town folks. This person knew personal information. They knew things that, somebody that knew you had to know. But yet nobody knows who he is or she is at all as of today. So I will tell you this story. Feel free to research this story yourself. There are many different opinions and ideas of who the person was. You can try to figure it out yourself if this story is interesting enough for you to indulge in after you listen to this. So, back in 1976 is when the letters started happening. Some random people receive letters. Now, I will push forward to the summer of 1977 to a specific resident of Circleville, Ohio, and her name was Mary Gillespie. Alright, she was a school bus driver, and one day she got a letter in the mailbox and opened it up, and in that letter an anonymous person had wrote that he knew that Mary was having an affair with a man named Gordon Massey. Now, Gordon Massey was the superintendent of the school district that she worked for. The author had warned Mary that he had been keeping an eye on her and what she was doing. He told her in the letter that he knew that she had a husband and a child, and he had demanded that she stop her affair. Now, if any of us got a letter like that, and especially if, let's say, you weren't having an affair, you'd be like, what the heck? Who is this? Why would they be starting stuff? If you were having an affair, you'd be asking yourself, who knows? And how do they know? So, Mary, at the time, was very scared. She kept the letters from her husband, Ron, and had decided she didn't want to tell him. So, not very long later, her husband, Ron, got his own letter from this anonymous author informing Ron that his wife was having an affair with Gordon Massey. It warned Ron that if because this concerned Ron and messed with his world very much. Now he had a little bit of fear of dying from an unknown person, as well as he had to deal with the fact that somebody was telling him his wife was having an affair, which brings a lot of animosity and problems to anybody's world. So Ron confronted his wife, and Mary denied having an affair. After she denied having the affair, the couple had decided amongst themselves that they weren't going to tell anybody about the letters. So they were hoping by not saying anything that the letters would go away, things would stop. So 2 weeks later, the Gillespies had not received another letter, and they were like, "We're good." Guess what? They weren't good. More letters started to arrive at their address. This time, the letters were threatening that this author was going to go public about the affair. He had threatened, even furthermore, that if she did not end her affair with Massey, that this anonymous person was going to inform the TV stations locally, the CB radio, and even put things up on billboards to make it public to everybody in this town. So at this point, Mary and Ron, they did not know what to do. So what they did is they decided, we have to make this public. In some way, we have to tell somebody. We don't know what to do. So Mary and Ron went to Ron's sister. Ron's sister's name was Karen, and Karen had a husband named Paul. They were Karen and Paul Freshour, and they also told Paul's sister. Now, when they told them, Mary had let them know that she had a suspicion that it was possibly a fellow co-worker who was also a bus driver that probably wrote the letters. She believed it was him because this bus driver had tried to make an advance on Mary, and she told him no, and she believed this bus driver got very angry. Now the bus driver's name was David Longberry, and she thought this could be the only person who was mad enough to do this to me. So they asked Paul, the husband of Ron's sister, Karen, to write a letter to this co-worker, David, asking him to please stop and informing him that they knew that the letters were coming from him. After they wrote these letters, the letters seemed to stop. Several weeks went by. Now for all of us, as several weeks went by, we're like, it's over. You know, we don't need to call the authorities. It's not that big of a deal. It's over. We get on with our life. Now let me be honest with you. I don't think I'd be done with it. I mean, they threatened to kill me. They knew personal information about me. They were trying to ruin my life. Even though, well, Mary was ruining her life by having an affair on her husband. You should never cheat on your husband or wife. If you are, stop or leave them. That's ridiculous. Causes nothing but problems. So after these weeks went by and they started to get some relief and calm down, more things started happening. So instead of letters, there were large signs that started to appear in town. These signs were claiming that Gordon Massey, again, that's who Mary was having the affair with. It was accusing him of having sexual relationship with the Gillespie, Mary and Ron's 12-year-old daughter. Now you're attacking a family. People are seeing this around town. People are going to be talking about it. And Ron started getting up extra early in the morning to drive and remove these signs that were found on the side of the road. Okay, so moving forward to August 19 of 1977, this was a day that changed everybody's lives, especially Mary and Ron's life. On that day, the phone rang, and Ron had answered it. On the other line, there was a voice that sounded like it was the man who wrote the letters. And this voice informed and told Ron that he knew what his truck had looked like. He told him he knew where he lived. When Ron heard these words come out of this person's mouth, he actually believed he knew who was talking to him. When he heard this, he hung up the phone in a very angry way. He grabbed his gun. He kissed his daughter goodbye. He got in his truck and he took off very fast. A very short period of time later, Ron's truck was found on the side of the road, ran into a tree. Ron's gun had signs of being fired one time. No bullet hole was found in the truck. Or in Ron, there was no casing or anything found anywhere around the scene. But Ron was dead in his truck. When Ron got taken to the hospital to get an autopsy, they ran a test on Ron's blood and found that his blood alcohol content was 0.16, which was twice over the legal limit in Circleville, Ohio. So, the original claim of foul play, especially with all the things that had happened, they actually concluded that Ron had died as a result of a drunk driving accident. So, many believed that the single gunshot could have been him driving down the road in an angry, drunken stupor, and he put his hand out the window with the gun and fired a random shot. Maybe he yelled, who knows? Nobody really knows. But if he fired a random shot, that would be why there wouldn't be a casing next to the crime scene or any bullets found, because he just shot it randomly through the sky. So after this had all happened, the family of Ron, told everybody that Ron was not a drinker. It was not under his characteristics of drinking. So they said that he did have reasons to drink, like anybody that was going through the stress that his family was going through. But it was not like Ron to drink. So the sheriff had claimed one person of interest about the odd nature, and this person passed a polygraph test, and the sheriff had no choice but to dismiss the suspect. Now, it doesn't say who that suspect is. I'm sure if maybe you look for it, or I were to research it a little bit more, I may be able to find out who this person was, but he was deemed not a suspect. After this happened, they then took Ron's smashed up truck, which was then disposed of at a junkyard in Ohio, which eliminated any chance of doing a further investigation on the truck, because the truck was no more. So after citizens of this town that started to receive these letters. These letters were now accusing the sheriff, his name was Sheriff Radcliffe, of covering up the true nature and the true way of how Ron died, saying the sheriff was covering it up. Why? Not sure. It also accused the sheriff of mishandling an investigation in the past that had gone on with the county coroner, and his name was Dr. Ray Carroll. Dr. Ray Carroll had been accused of sexual abuse of many children, and this man was stating that the sheriff mishandled this investigation, which probably led to, Dr. Ray Carroll being a free man. I did not look further into Dr. Ray Carroll, so, again, you can look into this Ray Carroll some more, and I will probably dig up some more information too. And if I find more information out at a later time, I will do a part 2 to the Circleville letters and give more updates if I ever see more things or find more information that, I feel I should share with everybody. But right now, I'm not going to worry about that. So, right around the time that these letters were being sent out about the sheriff, Mary's sister-in-law Karen, remember Karen and Paul were married. Now Karen and Paul got separated because Paul had discovered that Karen was actually cheating on him. So Paul then filed for a divorce. After he did that, he gained full custody of their children. Karen had moved out of their house because Paul got to keep it, and she moved into a trailer that was in Mary Gillespie's backyard. So, the weird thing about all of this is, first off, let me ask you this question. If somebody was sending you threatening letters, asking you to stop an affair, or everybody was going to know, and your husband was going to be killed for not making it public, would you start an affair with the person you were being accused of sleeping with? I ask you this because when Mary was asked about this affair after Ron had died, she said that she was never having an affair with Gordon Massey before the letters were sent, but she stated that she started to have an affair with Gordon Massey after the letters were sent. And I say, really? Why would you do that? I mean, if you wanted to have an affair, wouldn't you pick somebody else? Not the person in the letters. It seems kind of strange to me. Maybe somebody's lying. It's hard to tell. So, you just have to go with the fact that it's strange, and it just doesn't make sense. Why would you start the affair after the letters? So, these harassing messages continued. More and more signs continued to show up on Mary's bus route all the time after Ron's death. On the date of February 7th of 1983, so now we're 6 years later almost, since this all began, she hops out of her bus when she sees a sign. She runs over to the sign to grab it. And when she goes to grab the sign, she notices a box that was attached to the pole. And inside that box was a small pistol. The reason this gun was in the box was a booby trap. And this booby trap was designed and set there so that if you grabbed the sign and removed it, the string would pull the trigger and shoot off the gun, basically hurting, killing, in whatever manner, the person who tried to remove the sign. When the police took the gun and examined it, they traced it back to Paul Freshour, who was, if you remember, Mary's ex-brother-in-law, who was married to Karen. He was the one who had the children in the house and had caught Karen cheating. So, they had stated that when Karen was living with Mary on her property, she actually shared suspicion with Mary that her ex-husband may be behind the letters and the phone calls and the signs. When the gun was found, they took Paul into the sheriff's office for questioning. They also made him handwrite, anything, who knows what exactly, on letters, basically to see his handwriting. And, they asked him to show the sheriffs where he put his gun in his house. He told the sheriff that his gun was stolen in the past, that it wasn't the first time that his gun was stolen. So basically, Paul ends up arrested and charged with an attempted murder of Mary. His handwriting was deemed the same handwriting from the letters, and he then has a trial. His trial starts on October 24th, 1983. He wasn't charged with actually writing the letters. As I said before, he was just charged in the murder. But there were 39 letters that were allowed into the evidence in this trial. The handwriting experts took the stand in this trial and told the jurors that the letters and the handwriting matched Paul's handwriting. Mary took the stand and testified that she believed the letters were written by Paul because Karen had shared her suspicion before the gun was found. So, Paul's boss had testified that Paul wasn't at work on that day, that he had a solid alibi for almost the entire day, and Paul never took the stand in his own defense. Now, if I was innocent and I knew that I didn't commit a murder, I better damn well know that I'm going to jump up on the stand and I'm going to answer questions and I'm going to do whatever I can to prove to everybody I didn't do this. So why Paul did not take the stand, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. So, after the trial's done, the jury actually convicts him of attempted murder. They give Paul the maximum sentence. They give him 7 to 25 years. Everybody in the town was like, we've got him. The guy who was writing the letters is gone. The years following the conviction, Paul made a statement that said, I can't blame the jury because the jury didn't hear all of the evidence. He said he could not believe that he was convicted guilty, and he was in complete shock. Here's the kicker. While Paul was in prison, letters continued to circle around Circleville, and people were continuing to get letters. A journalist by the name of Martin Yount had said that people were receiving letters all over a large area of central Ohio. The people that thought that Paul did it could not understand how Paul could have been mailing these letters from prison. There were new letters that accused a prosecutor in the case of Paul. His name was Roger Klein. It accused Roger Klein for playing a role in a murder of a pregnant school teacher. It said that Klein had impregnated the teacher, and then he had to kill her after. I'm assuming he didn't want people to know, and he didn't want to have a kid, so the allegation was that he killed her with her baby so nobody would know. The author also said that he would dig up the grave of a deceased baby and mail the bones to the police if they did not look into Klein for, this murder that he wanted them to investigate. After all of this happened, the prison didn't know how Paul could send the letters out. They didn't know quite what to do. They checked all his incoming mail, all his outgoing mail. They didn't see any of the letters, but then letters continued to be dispersed. So at this point, the prison then took Paul and put Paul into solitary confinement. They gave him nothing to write with, nothing to write on. But guess what? The letters continued to circulate, and people kept getting them. So the prison warden actually made a statement and concluded that there was absolutely no way that Paul ever could have been writing those letters, and he definitely wasn't writing them now. Paul, while in prison, received a letter himself. The letter basically had stated, this isn't the entire letter, but it's part of it. It said, "Now, when are you going to believe you aren't going to get out of there? I told you 2 years ago, when we set them up, they stay set up. Don't you listen at all?" Paul basically maintained a very good prisoner for the 7 years. Remember, he was given 7 years plus. And at 7 years, he was eligible for parole. After 7 years, even though he was a model prisoner, they rejected, the parole because people were still receiving harassing letters. Even though the warden stated he wasn't writing them, I think they still thought he was. Another crazy part is all the letters were postmarked for Columbus, Ohio, but Paul was imprisoned in Lima, Ohio. So, Paul was in prison. While he was in prison, a witness came forward and told authorities that approximately 20 minutes before Mary discovered the booby trap sign on the side of the freeway, that this witness saw a man standing next to a yellow El Camino. They said that it was a large man with sandy hair. He turned around. He acted like he was going to the bathroom when he spotted the bus driver observing him. This person said that the man did not resemble Paul Freshour in any way, and that it couldn't have been him who planted the booby trap. So in May of 1994, this was 10 years after Paul was in jail, he was finally paroled. He maintained his innocence the entire time he was incarcerated, and he always said he was innocent up until 2012, when he died at the age of 70 years old. The weird thing, in 1994, all the letters stopped. Interesting, but why would they stop then? You gotta wonder. So, Roger Klein was the prosecutor who put Paul behind bars. Roger Klein, remember, he was the one that the letter said killed this old teacher who was pregnant, was then investigated on the allegations. The police investigated it, spoke with the parents of the deceased baby that was threatened to be dug up, and these people even spoke with the TV stations in Ohio and confirmed that the allegations of this woman that was pregnant were true. Now, there's not a lot of detail about this. It seems kind of strange if you find more details about this Roger Klein. It seems a little confusing because you gotta ask yourself this question. Why would an anonymous person dig up a random deceased baby and send them bones? That was different from the woman who had a baby in her belly. What is the correlation here? You know, what did that baby separately have to do with this woman and her baby? It really doesn't make any sense. So, I'm not really sure what this mystery anonymous author was trying to do with that information. There's just not a lot of details on that. So maybe it's just some evidence that's wishwash. Maybe it had nothing to do with anything. Maybe it was things that were thrown in there to confuse somebody so that they would look at somebody else. And it really meant nothing. I don't think anybody will know. So if you research the Circleville letters case and you find out more about Roger Klein, let me know. I will tell you that he retired in 2013, but he became a court judge before he retired, and he never got in trouble for any kind of murder or anything. So, if we go back to also the coroner, Ray Carroll, who I told you was in a letter and accused of sexually doing things to children, turned out to be true. Ray had been accused of abusing several children, and in 1993, December actually, Carroll was charged with 12 counts. 8 of these counts were alleging the doctor of gross immorality, sex crimes, corruption of a minor, pornography, obscenity, and indecent exposure. So, whoever was writing these letters did actually know information, and if he was right about Dr. Carroll, if he was right about the affair between Mary and Gordon, and he was right about a lot of other things, you'd have to assume that maybe he was right about Klein, who murdered this woman who was pregnant. We may never know. We probably won't know. If you figure it out, if you find out more, please share. So let's go back to David Longberry. If you remember him, he was the coworker that tried to put an advance on Mary, and who Mary thought originally was the person who wrote the letters. Longberry was suspected as somebody who forcibly raped an 11-year-old girl in 1999, and before he could be basically convicted and go through a trial, he became a fugitive in 1999. This Longberry disappeared, and they have reports that Longberry committed suicide while he was on the run, and there were other public records that showed that he was still on the run in 2005, which would mean that he never actually committed suicide because the allegations of suicide came before these public records. So you have to wonder what's going on. Klein is listed as a deceased sex offender, but you can't find information on when or where he died, but you can assume that Roger Klein is now dead. So, if you want to try to find more information about a Roger Klein or about this David Longberry, feel free, again, to share with me any more interesting things that you find out. And like I said, if I'm able to put the rest of this story together and conclude more things, I will do this again with more detail and more conclusion. But as of right now, every conclusion is a speculation. So when you do read into this, you're going to find out that there are many different conclusions that were brought up, many different theories. Okay, you'll find them all over the place. Okay, so I'm going to give you one of the more popular theories of what actually happened and who the writer could have been. Alright, so let's start here. So, Mary's co-worker, David Longberry, who was very mad that Mary would not accept his advances, knew about the relationship that Mary was starting with Gordon. He was mad that Mary liked Gordon and not him. So he, David, was the first person to write and send the Circleville letters. Okay? Then, when Ron knew that Longberry was writing the letters and calling the family, he was very aggravated. This is when Ron drank a bunch of alcohol because he wanted what we would call liquid courage to confront and go after Longberry. And when the phone call happened, he went right for him, driving erratically and like a drunk driver does, wrecks and kills himself. And like I stated in the beginning, probably fired a random shot out a window in a rage on the way there, probably yelling obscenities, because he was not a big-time drinker. It is easy to conclude that it wouldn't have taken a lot of alcohol for his blood alcohol level to be 0.16, because he was not somebody who drank much. So, after this event had happened, if you remember, Paul and Karen, fresh hour, got divorced. Karen then started to put the signs around town herself, and she planted the booby trap to frame Paul, because that was her ex-husband who got the house and got the kids, and she was very bitter and very pissed off. So she wanted Paul to pay. She wanted her house back and her kids, and she thought, if I pin this on Paul, I will get what I want. So, the people had said Karen was a very angry and manipulating woman, and people even said all the way into the 90s. So, we're going 13, 14, 15 years later. People had said that Karen was always planting negative stories about Paul, and she never stopped. So, going further, if you remember me telling you, the witness came forward and said they saw a yellow Al Camino by the signs. Here's the kicker, okay? Karen's boyfriend, after the divorce, was a very tall man who had sandy hair, and he looked just like the man who was described at the intersection. And Karen had a relative, a close relative, who owned a yellow Al Camino. So it would have been very easy for her to borrow the car and then have her boyfriend drive the car over there and plant the information for her, and then have the gun be found. There was also, towards the end of the letters, some of the letters were actually written with a typewriter. They were not handwritten anymore. And prior to this, Paul's ex-wife Karen, the bitter one, had asked Paul's sister if she could borrow their typewriter. Paul's sister was a little confused by why she would want to borrow a typewriter because she wasn't a typist. And Karen had told her that she wanted to write a book. Karen had told Paul's sister that he wanted her to use it and said it was okay. And Paul's sister ended up giving her the typewriter to use. Very shortly after, the letters were done with a typewriter. So it seems kind of not obvious, but if you put two and two together, it makes sense that there were a couple people involved, and there were people within the family because of the information that was known, but nobody actually knows. Like, there's not enough concrete evidence to say this person did it, and we know, and to today, whoever this person was got away with it, whether it's somebody that's deceased or somebody that is still alive. The bottom line is, whoever wrote these letters, whoever set all this up, they were crazy, they were a nut job, and they weren't a very good person, as we all know. And that's really, all that there is with this. It's a very crazy story. I hope that I didn't confuse you too much. You can read about it yourself. Like I said, it's the Circleville poison pen letters. Alright, and feel free to find some more information out and produce your own theory and see what you come up with, because I find it to be very intriguing. Any unsolved mystery that doesn't have conclusion, to me, is amazing and very, very interesting. And with that being said, I'm going to let you go until my next video. It's been an absolute pleasure giving you this information and sharing with you an intriguing story. I am from Ohio, so having a story that comes somewhat close to home is amazing to tell. I appreciate you listening and being a part of my channel. Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.